Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lepakshi Khurana, coming up in the next hour. France's legislative election throws up a hung parliament. Left-wing alliance comes out on top in a shock upset over far-right and Macron's coalition. Pressure mounts on Biden to withdraw from his candidacy as presidential candidate. Democrats pitching for Vice President Kamala Harris, not ready to relent. President Joe Biden continues his claim for re-election effort in Pennsylvania. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to leave on a two-nation visit to Russia and Austria to hold talks with Russia's President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. And the flood situation in India's northeastern state of Assam remains grim. 2.5 million people in 29 districts affected. Death toll climbs to 66. And on to the details now. France's left-wing coalition is projected to win a surprise victory in the country's snap legislative election. The new Popular Front is on course to win the greatest number of seats, but will likely to fall short of a majority. The results were a shock after the far-right National Rally Party won the first round of voting last week. Ross Cullen reports for more from Paris.
Well, this was a real surprise. Jubilation on the left and real disappointment on the far right. The National Rally Party won the first round of France's general election last week, and they were leading all the pre-vote polls this week, but they have eventually finished in third place.
The quagmire that I warned about has of course come true. France will be totally blocked with three groups that have more or less the same influence in the National Assembly. Well, we are going towards that. It's sad. We are losing one more year. One more year of unregulated immigration. One more year of losing purchasing power. One more year of blowing up of insecurity in our country.
Emmanuel Macron's party managed to claw their way back from finishing third in the first round. They will now be the second biggest grouping in Parliament, but the success of Sunday night was certainly for the new Popular Front, the left-wing coalition of four parties which will have the greatest number of seats in Parliament. The French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal has offered to resign on Monday morning, handing in that letter to Emmanuel Macron, but there's no guarantee that the President will accept that letter. He may ask Mr Attal to stay on through the Olympic Games and throughout the summer to try to provide some semblance of political stability. But eventually the voices from the winning left-wing coalition will grow very loud in Emmanuel Macron's ear, demanding that he appoint a left-wing Prime Minister.
Now the will of the people must be strictly respected. From now on, no tricks, backroom deals, nor combinations would be acceptable. The lesson to be taken from the vote is definitive. The defeat of the President and his coalition has been confirmed with clarity. The President must give in and admit his defeat without trying to get around it in any way. The Prime Minister must go.
There's all the different political priorities to sort out about an eventual coalition, how it would look, how it would work, who would be the greatest representation in that left-wing and potentially centrist coalition. For the far right, they lamented the fact that they say a lot of the reason for their loss was the fact that they were subject to what they described as dangerous electoral arrangements. These are the loose agreements between the governing centrists and the left-wing opposition on Sunday not to run candidates against each other, to run the greatest risk of splitting the anti-far right vote. They wanted to coalesce all their support around one anti-far right candidate, and that strategy seems to have worked. The far right leader Jordan Bardella did say, however, that he wanted to hail the success of his party in gaining the greatest number of seats the far right have ever had in the French Parliament. One thing is certain, there will be no easy fix when France has a hung parliament. Ross Cullen in Paris reporting for DD India.
And France faced a potential political deadlock after elections on Sunday threw up a hung parliament, with the leftist alliance unexpectedly taking the top spot ahead of the far right, but no group winning a majority. Joy and relief swept over supporters as the leftist alliance New Popular Front defied surveys and took the top spot in France's snap legislative elections. Also, on the other side, thousands of demonstrators gathered in Paris to protest against the far right. The protesters clashed with the police. The election will leave Parliament divided in three big groups: the left, centrists and the far right, with hugely different platforms and no tradition at all of working together. Well, moving on, U.S. President Joe Biden campaigned in Pennsylvania on Sunday as he faces escalating pressure from fellow Democrats worried about his candidacy. Biden, 81, has faced growing calls to end his re-election bid after a halting performance in a June 27 debate with Republican Donald Trump. 78 raised questions about his ability to do the job for another 4 years. He's vowed to stay in the race, dismissing calls for him to drop out as nonsense in a fundraising email on Saturday. Sunday's trip, Biden's 10th to Pennsylvania during the 2024 election cycle, is part of a July voter outreach blitz by the Democratic Party that includes $50 million media campaign aimed at events such as the Olympics and the travel by the President, the First Lady, Vice President Kamala Harris, and her husband to every battleground state.
One of the things we're going to change in the second term is we're going to have a fairer tax system. We got a little fair. We made those 55 companies that didn't pay a penny in taxes and made $40 billion.
And an embattled 81-year-old U.S. President Joe Biden faced escalating pressure from fellow Democrats worried about his candidacy on Sunday after his halting performance in a 27th June debate with Donald Trump. On a leadership call on Sunday convened by Democratic Party leader Hakeem Jeffries, some Democratic lawmakers said that Biden should step aside as presidential candidate. Many Democrats suggested Vice President Kamala Harris to replace Biden in the 5th November election could perform well. On his social media, ex-Democratic National Committee member Alan Clendenin from Florida said on Sunday President Joe Biden should step aside as the Democratic Party's presidential candidate and allow Vice President Kamala Harris to take over. Clendenin said in a statement on social media platform X, Joe Biden will be remembered by historians as one of the finest presidents in American history. But this election is about the next 4 years, not the last 3.5. Democratic U.S. Representative Adam Schiff told NBC News he felt Vice President Kamala Harris could win overwhelmingly if she ran against former President Donald Trump. Well, a former Democratic congressman who has called on President Joe Biden to end his candidacy over health concerns said on Sunday that Vice President Kamala Harris could be a unifying figure, with polls showing that most Americans do not want a Trump-Biden rematch. Recent polls suggest Harris could do better than Biden against former U.S. President Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, although she would face a tight contest. Speaking to Fox News on Sunday, Tim Ryan, a former U.S. House Democratic, touted Harris' candidacy.
I particularly think Kamala Harris can come in and help us heal, but we need a candidate that can do that because the country is ready to move on from the Trump-Biden. All those double haters that you've talked about over the last few weeks, they don't like Trump, they don't like Biden. Let's give them a candidate they can rally around so this country can heal and we can become Americans again and not just Democrats and Republicans.
And Britain's new Defence Secretary pledged continued support to Ukraine during a visit to Odessa on Sunday that saw him visit a military hospital. On his second day on the job, John Healey met with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, telling him that the UK would step up its support to the country in its conflict with Russia. On a visit to Kyiv in May, Healey had said that a Labour government would stick to Britain's resolve to stand with Ukraine, to confront Russian aggression and to pursue Putin for his war crimes. And the newly appointed Dutch defence and foreign ministers have said that the Netherlands' support for Ukraine is rock solid. On their first visit to Kyiv, Defence Minister Ruben Brekelmans and Foreign Minister Casper Vletkamp held meetings with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Dutch defence minister said that the Netherlands would soon deliver 3 launchers and 1 radar system to Ukraine. He was also in talks with other partners to use all creativity to create international coalitions to deliver Patriot systems, which have helped Kyiv defend itself against Russian attacks. And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday said that any Gaza ceasefire deal must allow Israel to resume fighting until its objectives are met. Netanyahu said that the deal must also prohibit weapons smuggling to Hamas via the Gaza-Egypt border and should not allow for thousands of armed militants to return to northern Gaza. Meanwhile, a Hamas official on Sunday said that the group was ready to discuss a hostage release deal with Israel, even without a complete ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Well, the apparent easing of Hamas's position comes as long-stalled diplomatic efforts to secure a ceasefire and hostage release have gathered pace with a new proposal and meetings hosted by Qatari and Egyptian mediators in Doha. U.S. Central Intelligence Agency Chief William Burns is to meet with Qatar's Prime Minister and Israeli and Egyptian intelligence chiefs on Wednesday in Doha. Burns is expected to visit Cairo this week along with an Israeli delegation. And Senegal's President Bassirou Faye has been appointed as a special envoy to hold talks with the military leaders of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger, following their move to leave the regional bloc ECOWAS. He was given this special assignment by the re-elected chairperson of the bloc, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, during an ECOWAS summit in Abuja. The meeting was convened to discuss challenges facing the bloc and region, including the move by Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger to break away from ECOWAS. Ajak Mangut reports for more from Abuja.
Nigeria's president and re-elected chairman of ECOWAS, Bola Tinubu, directed Senegal's president to work with the leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger as the bloc continues its efforts to keep them within ECOWAS. The 3 countries had announced plans to leave the bloc at the beginning of the year, and in a summit just a day before the July 7th ECOWAS summit, signed agreements for increased defense and economic cooperation under the Alliance for the Sahel States Mutual Pact. These agreements will see them pooling resources to strengthen ties in the mining, agriculture and energy sectors, further dashing hopes of their return to ECOWAS despite the bloc's negotiation efforts. Analysts say the move could have significant security and economic implications, affecting the free movement of people and goods between the 3 countries and other ECOWAS nations, as well as the Islamist insurgency in the Sahel that's killed thousands and left millions in need of humanitarian assistance. At the summit in Abuja, ECOWAS leaders also discussed security and economic challenges facing the region. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, who hosted the West African leaders, stated that strong political will and significant financial resources will be needed as ECOWAS looks to operationalize its standby force to combat terrorism and restore stability in the region. The bloc is seeking over $2 billion to fund these operations. Leaders at the summit emphasized that a peaceful and secure West Africa is key to achieving its potential. Ajak Mangut reporting for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Now. We'll show you our exclusive talk with the Director General of the Russian International Affairs Council about the pacts expected to be signed during PM Modi's visit to Russia. India's Supreme Court to hear a bench of pleas on national eligibility cum entrance test undergraduate 2024 examination irregularities and retest. And July in Tripura came alive with the colours and flavours to celebrate the king of fruits, mango.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Moscow starting Monday will be his first visit to Russia in nearly 5 years. He last visited the country in 2019 for an economic forum in the eastern Russian port city of Vladivostok. Jessica Taneja reports for more from Moscow.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will pay an official visit to Moscow on the 8th and 9th of July. He will be arriving in Moscow in the afternoon on 8th July. President Putin will host a private dinner for the Prime Minister on the day of arrival.
This visit of Prime Minister to Russia is in the first place resumption of the annual summit between the leaders. Second, there is a very multifaceted relationship between India and Russia. So we expect discussions between the leaders to cover all those aspects, both bilateral issues and dimensions of its relationship, but also the regional and global issues of mutual interest will be discussed.
The next day, Prime Minister's interactions would include an interface with the Indian community in Russia. The Indian community is excited to welcome the Prime Minister in Moscow.
From the Indian diaspora, we would like to take our relation on the next level on cultural, the personal relations and everything.
I'm very much looking forward to meeting Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Of course, we have just seen him on the television. So for the first time, we'll be looking at him live in person. And have a very fruitful conversation with him.
I'm really looking forward to our Prime Minister Mr. Modi's visit to Russia. He's already been here several times, but this time it should be special again for me and for Indians diaspora.
As part of programming elements, Prime Minister will also lay a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Kremlin. Later, Prime Minister will visit the Rosatom Pavilion at the exhibition venue in Moscow. These engagements will be followed by restricted-level talks between the two leaders, which will then be followed by delegation-level talks led by Prime Minister and the Russian President. The Indian Prime Minister last visited Russia in 2019 for an economic forum in the far eastern Russian port city of Vladivostok. He last travelled to Moscow in 2015. During his last visit to India, Russian President Vladimir Putin had said that Moscow works with New Delhi in the technical and military sphere like no other country. He said Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a time-tested friend. This visit is aimed at reinforcing those ties and also looking at diversifying trade ties beyond the defense and energy sector. This is Jessica Taneja with video journalist Shubham in Moscow for DD India.
And for more, we have our correspondent Jessica Taneja joining us. Well, Jessica, our Prime Minister reaches Moscow today for the 22nd India-Russia Annual Bilateral Summit, which is taking place after a gap of 3 years. What all is on the agenda?
That's correct. He's meeting the Russian president in the gap of 3 years, as you rightly pointed out, and his visit to Moscow in the last 5 years. As you recall, he was in Russia in 2019 during the Vladivostok summit, the Eastern Economic Forum summit, and a lot of important deals were signed even then, particularly the Vladivostok-Chennai the corridor, and we could expect from the delegation level talks to have more fruitful the conversation around how the trade ties could be diversified, as to what are the two countries looking forward to strengthen their strategic partnership. So lots on the agenda today, and as you heard from the report, the entire day is packed for the Prime Minister. He will be received by the Deputy Prime Minister of Russia on his arrival in Moscow in the afternoon today, and after that we are expecting the Prime Minister to reach the hotel, which is Ritz-Carlton, where he'll be greeted by the Indian diaspora right behind me on the streets. By the afternoon, Nepalshi, the street would be filled with the enthusiast Indian community who are waiting to welcome him. And after that, of course, we know he will be meeting with the Russian president, and soon the day follows with packed diplomatic parley.
All right. Also, Jessica, why is this visit so significant in the context of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and how can it potentially influence the regional security dynamics?
Right, and that has been a point of consideration during this visit, but if you recall, India's position on the entire confrontation has been the same. India advocates for diplomacy and dialogue, and perhaps if you recall, the Prime Ministers had conversation with both Russian President Vladimir Putin as well as the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the past, hoping for a resolve and impasse, and something that could end this impasse soon. And in fact, India has been offered in the past to mediate in the talks as well. So an important role there played by the Indian Prime Minister to be the mediator in order to, take the initiative forward with the multipolar world, since this conflict has caused much economic damage since its onset 2 years ago. So a lot, of course, a lot of focus of the West will also be particularly on the kind of regional and security issues that will be discussed between the two nations. But more importantly, the bilateral talks would focus on enhancing trade ties beyond the energy and the defense sector. Now, the energy and the defense sector are two areas where India and Russia have cooperated for many years, leaving out the energy sector, which of course has been seeing a massive uptick in the last 2 years. So much so that because of the discounted Russian crude, India has been able to save approximately $13 billion. So that certainly has been strengthening the relationship, taking the bilateral ties between the two nations to nearly $65 billion. And that is something which India and Russia would want to enhance further.
Right. As you said, the bilateral talks will be there to enhance further. How has the India-Russia relationship, if we talk about, evolved since Prime Minister Modi's last visit in 2019?
Well, if you recall, the Foreign Secretary Vinay Kwatra had said last week, and I quote, he said, "This is the highest mechanism to steer and drive cooperation between our two countries." And with that, he of course meant that India and Russia share historic strategic ties, starting from defense approximately 70 years ago, in the 90s as well, and in the 70s as well. You'd recall how Russia has been a crucial partner to India, especially when it comes to military ties. But over the years, the two countries have been able to diversify beyond military trade as well. If you look at the commercial trade, which was limited to a few $1 billion relating to pharmaceuticals, chemicals, textiles. So this time the discussion could also be centered around how to take forward that particular, to focus on those particular areas, and apart from that, also look at how the two countries could probably look forward to more engagements in the future. Remember, this is the 22nd annual summit between the two, and this annual summit is quite unique, quite a unique format between the two leaders. That India and Russia have. It's not the bilateral relationship is not the same for all countries, even though India maintains strategic autonomy and has good relationships and ties with almost all other major powers. Right. That also includes Russia. So India has been able to sort of take forward its strategic relationships in a manner where it doesn't disrupt any other.
Right. Thank you so much, Jessica, for all that update from there. And moving on, Supreme Court of India will hear a bench of pleas alleging paper leak and irregularities in the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test undergraduate on NEET UG 2024 examination held on the 5th of May this year. The centre and the National Testing Agency, which conducts NEET UG, recently told the apex court that scrapping the exam would be counterproductive and seriously jeopardize lakhs of honest candidates in the absence of any proof of large-scale breach of confidentiality. India's Education Ministry and the NTA have filed separate affidavits in the apex court opposing the pleas, which have sought scrapping of the exam, a retest and a court-monitored probe into the entire gamut of issues involved. And for more on this, we have a correspondent, Vikas Sarthi, joining us. Well, Vikas, good morning. Supreme Court to hear pleas on NEET exam irregularities and calls for retest. Which cases will be heard today regarding this?
Today, all those petitions, and by and large, there are three demands. First, that there must be a court-monitored probe, which is already going on. The CBI is already investigating, though the probe is not being monitored by the court, but there was a demand that Supreme Court should also monitor the status of CBI investigation. So, first demand relates to those petitions. There were some other petitions were already pending before the Supreme Court before NEET 2024 examinations, and in those petitions, students have raised certain apprehension about irregularities in NEET examinations, and they also thought that exams should be postponed. There are those petitions also listed before the court, and NTA, National Testing Agency, also approached to the Supreme Court demanding that all the petitions pending before the different high courts throughout the country should be transferred to the Supreme Court as well. So these are the three groups of petitions which will be heard by a regular bench of the Supreme Court for the first time. Earlier, all these petitions were filed before the Supreme Court, but all those petitions were taken up by the vacation bench, and at that point in time, court also made certain remarks that vacation bench doesn't have much time, and because of that, it is not going to a detailed hearing. But now, when a regular bench of the Supreme Court will hear all those petitions, it will go through all the details, and it will give a detailed. It will give opportunity to petitioners as well as the NTA to put their argument in detail. So it is going to be very crucial in hearing which will take place today before the bench of Chief Justice of India. Though NTA and the Union government have already filed their affidavits in the Supreme Court, and they have said that to conduct re-examination will be unfair for those students who have secured good marks in merit list. And as far as the irregularities are concerned, these are limited to two specific centers. One center was in Patna, Bihar, and the other center was in Godhra, Gujarat. These two centers reported some kind of irregularities, and CBI is investigating role of all those persons who were responsible for those irregularities, and because of that, the whole examination must not be scrapped. Re-examination will be a bad idea. NTA and center are in agreement on that point.
All right, re-examination will be a bad idea. Thank you so much, Vikas, for that update, and we'll keep taking more update as the day progresses. Moving on, India's President Draupadi Murmu had a profound meditative experience on the beach where she felt a spiritual connection with the serene surroundings. President Murmu is on a 4-day state visit to Odisha, where she also participated in the annual Lord Jagannath Yatra. Well, July in Tripura came alive with the colors and flavors to celebrate the king of fruits, that's mango, at an annual mango festival. The festival showcased an array of varieties with stalls brimming with Alfonso, Kesar and many more, attracting visitors from across the region. And still to come on DD India News Hour. We'll give you an update on the ongoing holy Amarnath Yatra. The India Meteorological Department issues an orange alert for very heavy rain in Uttar Pradesh, northeast and the west coast. And Panamanian government takes strict action to stem the flow of migrants. Stay tuned to know more.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lepak Shikuran, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. France's legislative election throws up a hung parliament. Left-wing alliance comes out on the top in a shock upset over far-right and Macron's coalition. Pressure mounts on Biden to withdraw from his candidacy as presidential candidate. Democrats pitching for Vice President Kamala Harris, not ready to relent. President Joe Biden continues his claim for re-election effort in Pennsylvania. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to leave on a two-nation visit to Russia and Austria to hold talks with Russia's President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. And the flood situation in India's northeastern state of Assam remains grim. 2.5 million people in 29 districts affected. Death toll climbs to 66. And moving on, in Jammu and Kashmir, more than 150,000 pilgrims have paid obeisance at the Amarnath Shrine. Owing to heavy rain and slippery conditions, the pilgrimage was temporarily suspended on Saturday, only to resume later in the day. The Hindu pilgrimage began on the 29th of June on the traditional 48-kilometer Nanvan-Pahalgam route in Anantnag and the 14-kilometer shorter but steeper Baltal route in Ganderbal. The Meteorological Department has forecast partially cloudy weather on both the routes with the possibility of intermittent light rain and thunder showers in the coming days. And Shabir Dar joins us for more from Srinagar on this. Well, Shabir, our yatra has resumed, and how is it going? And what's the update from there?
Yeah, the yatra is going on smoothly, and there's a huge enthusiasm among the pilgrims to carry forward this holy pilgrimage. You know, in last 90 days, since June 29, when the yatra started, over 182,000 pilgrims have paid obeisance in the holy cave. And the enthusiasm is only growing day by day because there is large number of, thousands of yatris stationed in the transit camps who are waiting for their turn to go for this holy trek. Ample arrangements and educate, measures of relative security and otherwise are in place to ensure that yatris have a smooth, yatra and comfortable, journey. If we talk about the medical arrangements, the government has trusted in a large number of medical employees to ensure that yatris, are treated well in case of any eventuality. On the track, there are mobile ambulances in place. Even the medical equipment is being carried on the horsebacks, like the pony ambulances, to ensure that any yatri who faces any medical emergency on the track is being taken care of. So in addition to that, on the base campus in Nunwan and Pahalgam, 100-bedded hospitals with ample facilities all are in place to ensure that no left unturned to ensure that yatra goes smoothly. Yes.
All right. So all precautions are being taken to for the pilgrims to have a facilitating yatra there. Thank you so much for joining us. And the Indian Meteorological Department has issued an orange alert for very heavy rain in Uttar Pradesh, the northeast and the west coast. Light to moderate rainfall accompanied by thunderstorm and lightning is very likely over Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh and central India. Scattered to fairly widespread light to moderate rainfall over Himachal Pradesh, Delhi and eastern Rajasthan. Isolated to scattered light to moderate rainfall over Jammu Kashmir, Punjab and western Rajasthan during the next 5 days. The department has also issued an orange alert for parts of central Maharashtra as heavy rains with over 300 mm lashed parts of Mumbai, leaving low-lying areas waterlogged. An orange alert has been issued there. The IMD alert for incessant rains. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued an orange alert for very heavy rain in parts of Uttar Pradesh, northeast and west coast. Rains have lashed all over India right now. Light to moderate rainfall accompanied by thunderstorm and lightning is also very likely in Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh and central India. Also scattered to fairly widespread light to moderate rainfall over Himachal Pradesh, Delhi and eastern Rajasthan also expected. Isolated to scattered light to moderate rainfall over Jammu Kashmir, Punjab and western Rajasthan is also expected during the next 5 days. Also, the IMD department has issued an orange alert for parts of central Maharashtra as heavy rains had lashed the city. 300 mm of rain has already scattered all over Mumbai and leaving low-lying areas waterlogged there. And Yogesh Sheetal joins us for more from Mumbai on this. Well, Yogesh, IMD issues a number of alerts, especially an orange alert for Maharashtra. How prepared is the city for the incessant rains?
See, Lipakshi, we have seen in Mumbai, even since the monsoon arrival, we have seen number of steps have already been taken by the BMC, by Mumbai police and also by the other agency, including health officials. So currently, what we can say, the most Mumbaikars are used to such situations in Mumbai, especially in these peak seasons. So rightly, you have also underlined in your anchor that between the 8 a.m. in the night and since the until 7 a.m. in the morning, the situation has gone a bit worsened, and that's the reason. So all the agencies who are already on a standby have just moved to the ground, and currently the low-lying area, basically in the city like Andheri and also in Gandhi Market, Kudla is very important reason when we say Mumbai local functioning, because Kudla combines the Central Railway as well as Harbour Line and Central Line. So the train services, the Mumbai local, basically known as the lifeline of Mumbai, the services have been disrupted, and now the Harbour Line trains are running only up to Vashi station, not going beyond that. Coming to Central Line, the main line which connects to Kalyan, Thane, Diva, to the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Terminal, CST, that service has also been partially suspended on some particular region. The train is running, train is operational, but in restricted speed because of waterlogging at some areas like in Kalyan, like in Kasara. These are the areas where people are coming to Mumbai city for job, for their work. So you can say that office goers are facing much problems today. Coming to bus services, certain routes have been diverted in western pockets like in Khar Road, Santa Cruz, Bandra, Dadar. These are the routes where the base services have been rerouted because of waterlogging in some pockets, basically in the flyover area. Now coming to other services like schools and colleges, these school and college institutions have been shut by the BMC as a precautionary measures, and also we have seen the as far as the operational things are concerned, the NDRF already deployed team in Thane, Mumbai, Palghar. These are the regions which generally where we can see sometimes a collapse of buildings, sometimes other kind of calamities are there. So the agencies are on the standby. So you can see the situations, definitely the life, the speed of Mumbai has been a bit disturbed because of incessant rains, and also the IMD predicted the orange alert for today. So the precautions are already been taken and certain instructions are already been issued one by one by the agencies. Over to you, Lipa.
All right, Yogesh, thank you so much for all that update from there. And the flood situation in Indian northeastern state of Assam remained critical, with 2.5 million people in 29 districts affected as torrential rain battered eastern parts of the country. 8 people died during the past 24 hours, taking the death toll to 66. The authorities in the affected districts remain on high alert as the Brahmaputra, Barak and other major rivers are flowing above the danger level. The devastating flood in the Kaziranga National Park has claimed 114 wild animals, while 95 were rescued so far. Of the park's 233 anti-poaching camps, 68 remain flooded, while 4 others had to be vacated by the forest guards. And moving on, authorities say Tropical Storm Beryl could grow into a Category 2 hurricane by the time it makes landfall in the Houston area early on Monday as it regains strength, moving northwest over the Gulf of Mexico. Texas residents filled up their gas tanks and stocked up on essentials at local grocery stores as they prepared for Beryl. The storm, which at one point intensified to a Category 5 hurricane, is forecasted to become dangerous storm surge, flash flooding and strong winds to Texas overnight. And firefighters used helicopters and airplanes to try and contain a wildfire as it burned near an airport east of California. Wildfire triggered extensive evacuation orders, damage assessments, raised the number of destroyed structures. Forecasters said heat and fire risk were expanding on the west coast. The basin fire is the Sierra National Forest, started on June 26th, and now more than 77 acres have already been burned.
Giant bulldozer that they're taking.
Also, Las Vegas saw record-breaking temperatures of 48.3 degrees Celsius as a widespread heat wave lashes the U.S. West Coast. About 36 million people of the country were under excessive heat warnings coming from the heat dome centered over California. Las Vegas sizzled in 53 degrees Celsius through Saturday, breaking a 17-year record of 2007. Authorities have put 36 million people are under heat advisories. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Panamanian government has installed barbed wire fences to stem the flow of migrants through the Darien jungle linking Central America to Colombia, which has sparked opposition from local residents and neighboring countries. Authorities said more than 195,000 migrants passed through these border crossings irregularly in 2024. However, the decision has been criticized by human rights groups, arguing that it exasperates the dire conditions faced by migrants, forcing them to take more dangerous routes. A protest was carried out by feminist groups in Spain to condemn sexual assault and violence against women committed during Spain's bull running festival. The protest marked the first anniversary of an incident where an 18-year-old woman was assaulted by 5 men at the festival, causing public outrage and prompting calls to reform the law. People in Thailand are getting tattoos of sacred scriptures known as sakyant, which is believed to offer blessings, protect from harm, with designs being modified with a mischievous grinning furry monster in the middle. This creature is called Labubu, and its popularity rose after singer Lisa from K-pop group Blackpink was seen with one such box. The bite-sized Millions of Despicable Me 4 have delivered big results, crossing a whopping $122.6 million at the U.S. box office. Earlier too, the Despicable Me franchise, released around the 4th of July at the box office, became the highest film debut over the U.S. Independence Day with $123 million for the 5 days. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Defending champions Carlos Alcaraz and world number 1 Jannik Sinner stay on track for a blockbuster Wimbledon showdown by reaching the quarter-finals. And Euro 2024 awaits heavyweight semi-final clashes as France takes on Spain and England faces the Netherlands. And volleyball players gathered in Slovenia to play a different sort of volleyball. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Now. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and on to some business news now. The United States is intensifying its efforts to strengthen financial connectivity, investment and integration within the Indo-Pacific region. This commitment was underscored during a Pacific banking meeting in Brisbane in Australia, which brought together financial institutions and government officials. The Pacific region is considered strategically crucial to the US, and it has upped its engagement with and boosted efforts to support Pacific Island countries as it aims to curb the growing influence of China in the region. Pacific Island countries are facing challenges as major banks and long-term relationships with their Pacific counterparts, limiting the country's access to US dollar-denominated bank accounts. And the euro slipped on Monday after projections from France's election pointed to a hung parliament, spawning fresh uncertainty over the country's fiscal outlook. The dollar remained on the back foot following surprisingly soft US payrolls data on Friday, which boosted bets for the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates as early as September. Well, the oil prices moved sideways in Asian trade on Monday as investors eyed energy supply disruption, with the largest ports in Texas shut before Tropical Storm Beryl likely strengthen into a hurricane and makes landfall. Brent crude futures inched up 11 cents after closing down 89 cents on Friday. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was down by 8 cents after settling down 72 cents in the previous session. And a workers' union at Samsung Electronics in South Korea is set to stage a 3-day strike from Monday. It is warned that it could take further action against the country's most powerful conglomerate at a later date. The National Samsung Electronics Union, whose 28,000 members make up over a fifth of the firm's workforce in South Korea, is demanding that the company improve its performance-based bonus system and give workers an extra day of annual leave. Last month, the union staged a walkout by using annual leave, its first such industrial action, but the company at the time said there was no impact on production or business activity. Well, Vietnam's economy has witnessed a recovery in the first half of this year and expects a brighter outlook in the second half, as growth rates in both domestic production and exports remain consistent. According to Standard Chartered, Vietnam is among the countries with the fastest growth rates in 2024, with an increase of over 6%. But Vietnam is advised to be cautious when dealing with volatility in global markets, interest rates and inflationary pressures. And on to some sports news now. Defending champion Carlos Alcaraz and world number 1 Jannik Sinner stayed on track for a blockbuster Wimbledon showdown by reaching the quarter-finals on Sunday. French Open champion Alcaraz, who's looking to defend his Wimbledon trophy, battled past Hugo Humbert 6-3, 6-4, 1-6, 7-5 in round 4. Alcaraz will take on Tommy Paul in a quarter-final match on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Italy's Sinner, who could face Alcaraz in the semi-finals in a rematch of the Roland Garros meeting, was equally impressive in a 6-2, 6-4, 7-6 win over 14th seed Ben Shelton. This 22-year-old will next meet 5th seed Daniil Medvedev on Tuesday. The two last met each other in January when Sinner beat Medvedev to win his maiden Grand Slam title at the Australian Open. And from 24 teams at the start to just 4, the UEFA Euro 2024 semi-finalists are now confirmed. Germany, Portugal, Switzerland and Turkey all fell at the quarter-final stage as Spain set up a mouth-watering clash with France and England squeezed through to face the Netherlands. Spain knocked out host Germany as a 119th minute winner from Mikel Merino sealed a 2-1 victory during extra time. France got past Portugal on penalties in another quarter-final following a goalless draw. England also needed a penalty shootout to get past Switzerland. The semi-finals will be played on Tuesday and Wednesday night local time before Sunday's final in Berlin. And 16th time WWE champion John Cena announced his retirement from in-ring competitions with effect from 2025 on Sunday. Cena announced his retirement during a surprise appearance at the Money in the Bank event in Toronto. However, he went on to clarify that this retirement would not be immediate but was planned for the year 2025. The 47-year-old WWE legend hit the ring carrying a towel with a slightly altered version of his most famous catchphrase, "My time is now." Watch with this time reading, "The last time is now." Cena made his WWE debut in 2002 and has had a storied career in wrestling entertainment. He's had memorable rivalries against some of the biggest names in wrestling like The Rock, Triple H, CM Punk and Randy Orton. And Ukraine's Yaroslava Mahashchik gave herself the perfect pre-Olympic tonic by setting a new world record in women's high jump at the Diamond League meet in Paris on Sunday. Just 3 weeks out from the Paris Games, the reigning world champion Mahashchik set a new best of 2.10 meters. That marked the beat, the 1 centimeter, the previous one of track and field's longest standing record set by Bulgaria's Stefka Kostadinova in Rome in 1987. Her record-setting feat will see Mahashchik, who fled the Russian bombardment of a native city of Dnipro in February 2022, return to the French capital as one of the nailed-on stars for the Games. And volleyball players from around the world gathered in Slovenia for volleyball on water. The unique event featured a floating court partially submerged in the Jubilaniaka River, offering a new challenge.
Looking great, looking great.
And with that, it's just a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.